All right, it's the Bring Our Birds Home, Save the Plane campaign. We're a week into it. It was a big shot, looking for $2.5 million to fly and buy our last remaining 747 passenger jet. When I say our last one, the last Dash 19, the Boeing designated for New Zealand from the NAC days, the last remaining on the planet, ZK-NBV, sitting at Roswell, New Mexico, waiting for the Kiwis to come and bring her home any which way. And Simon Gault, well-known face, well-known person in New Zealand, joins us via Zoom right now. And Simon, thank you so much for coming on. And one thing I was really stoked to find out is that your father has, well, he'll have a connection, direct connection with probably this actual airplane.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spoke to him about this and, you know, you could see his wry old face come into a little smile, and he recalled the first time he ever saw a 747. He'd heard about them as a pilot, and he was flying DC-8s for Air New Zealand, and he was taxiing in Hong Kong and to Kai Tak, the airport there, and he laid his eyes on one of these things and thought, in his words, boy, what would it be like to fly one of those? And little did he know that he would actually end up training just about all the Air New Zealand pilots on how to fly the jumbo jet, the queen of the skies. And man, what an opportunity New Zealand has right now. If we can come together as a family and rescue this iconic piece of New Zealand history that so many of us have flown on. And I want my daughter, I mean, I got this out. This was a gift from Air New Zealand to my dad when he flew. What a beautiful airplane. And my 7-year-old daughter said to me, wow, Dad, he flew some cool airplanes. And what I would give to be able to take my daughter into the airplane and say, you know, your grandpa flew one of these. And, you know, this is an opportunity. This is the queen of the skies. It's the most beautiful looking airplane. I mean, it has presence beyond any other airplane, right? It's just, they don't build them like that anymore. And, you know, we could have this thing parked in New Zealand if we can all just give a little. I'm so excited. I think this is part of New Zealand aviation history and something that we need to keep alive, even if it's in a museum. What a privilege it would be to climb up the stairs. If you've ever been in a 747, you know, the mystique and the grandeur, if you can get to go upstairs, you know, and
the upper deck.
To see our kids do that would be just fabulous.
I've seen kids at the Boeing Museum of Flight in Seattle walking around under the #1 747 they have there. And that's kind of why I and our group are so passionate. It is an absolute look of wonder, of inspiration. This is the sort of thing, an experience like that kicks off a whole lifetime of interest and pursuit. You know, it touches so much more than being an artifact of the transportation history. And Simon, as you were holding that model up, I remember the first OE I did, and the first few steps on that OE was through the door of Takitimu at Auckland Airport, which took me all the way to Gatwick, it was back in the day. And I'll never forget that experience, and millions have done it. And that kind of moves it into a social, cultural bracket of history.
It sure does. And, you know, I remember when you get to an airport and you go to the gate and, you know, you look up at this airplane and, you know, it's parked in like that and you're looking and you can see the pilots in the front there. I mean, most airplanes you look down on at a gate while you're waiting to board, but this airplane is, you know, rightly deserves the name Queen of the Skies. And, you know, if we could have it in a museum in New Zealand, and like you say, to walk under it, stand next to one of those tires, see the size of the engines and go in there and see our proud markings that we as Kiwis have. And there's not many places in the world you can go and do that. It would be an absolute tourist attraction, not only for Kiwis, but everybody visiting New Zealand when they get to come back. But I think this is an opportunity that absolutely we cannot afford to miss it. And if we all just dip into our pockets and give a little, we might
can do a lot.
Just get it back home.
We can do a lot with actually quite a little, and we can possibly get onto that soon. I want to ask you about your father's experience. I mean, you must have, I mean, what an incredible position for you as a, growing up young boy and man to see Dad going off and doing that. He must have had quite the experience in the left-hand seat, as it turned out in the end, of the 747. Did he used to talk much about it? Did he ever make many comments about it? Did he tell you what it was like to be doing that?
Well, they disappear from home for long periods of time, and they make it out that it's really tough. But I think once they climb aboard that big jet, they're getting away from mum and the kids, and it's quite an exhilarating job, to be thundering down the runway with those 4 great engines launching you into the sky. And I remember as a young kid, I built a little kit set radio, and I would lie in bed at night waiting, knowing that Dad was coming home tonight, and I would listen on the radio to see if I could hear his voice going, NZ1, it was, and they call them, it might be NZ1 or whatever the number was, but it was always heavy, NZ1 heavy, and it was just, it's stuff dreams are made of, that airplane is aspirational. There wouldn't be a pilot in the world that wouldn't give a lot to have a drive of a 747 jumbo jet.
One also thinks about all the people who are involved through those years. I think 42 years in total, almost flawless. What a great job they did. We need to remember them as well, don't we?
We sure do. There's, all the cabin crew, all the ground engineers, all the support crew at the gate, checking people in, that have been a team to launch this gigantic airplane into the air with 500 people on board. There's the big Airbus now, but it just doesn't look right. There's just a difference. And, they call it the Queen of the Skies because it really does look that good. And they won't, it's highly unlikely that we will see many of them in the future. And I just think this project that you're embarking on, you need one hell of a pat on the back, because if you can pull it off, and if us Kiwis come together and throw a bit of money in, we can get that $2.5 million you need.
And that's 2.5 to fly and buy. And I should point out, and we've been, telling folks through our social media, and I mentioned on TV, that we also have an opportunity to buy the aircraft and not fly it, so secure it, right? So it doesn't go by way. And people have seen those pictures of aircraft, airliner graveyards where the digger comes in and literally 3 hours later, 4 hours later, it's just a pile of metal. And I mean, the thought of that keeps me awake at night, I've got to say. So, fly is the eloquent solution because it gets it here, and it gets it here quick, and it gets it in a good condition. But there's still buy and ship, which has been done before in the world. We've got plenty of examples of that. There's, room after the shoot for the moon part of this campaign, which I think we had to do to get attention and also to see if we can get there. You never know. I think that we've, at the very least, it's in the name, saved the plane, saved it from that digger, and we can then, after the threshold or the deal period for the fly and buy passes from the air sale company that own it, we still can secure it and retrieve it and save it. So,
well, you need to save it, but we've got to see it fly here. We've got to see it. We've got to see it touch down for the last time on our New Zealand soil, and us Kiwis need to get in behind you and back you so that this can happen. And I really hope there's enough people out there that see the value in having something this special back in New Zealand. And, if you look from World War II and afterwards, the New Zealand Air Force had all these P-51 Mustangs, and they were sold for pittance, and people just broke them up and used them as metal scraps. Now they're worth millions and millions of dollars. You can barely find them, and it's just tragic. And in the Mojave Desert, where they have all these airplanes, they get stored, but most of them, like you say, at the end of the day get ripped up for scrap, and that's a part of New Zealand history. There's one Air New Zealand 747 left. And we can't let it happen. We have to dig deep as a nation. I really believe that you're on the right track, and we need to see it fly home. We need this baby coming in, and, you know, it needs to do a circuit right around New Zealand so everybody can see it before it does its last touchdown. And then I'll sure be taking my daughter to climb up those stairs inside it and have a look.
Simon, thanks so much for your support and the passion there. And please send great regards to your father. Thank him for his great work for New Zealanders over the years. I mean, how many Kiwis has your father flown? Wow.
It's been, I think he would say it's been an absolute privilege. And if you can pull this off, I'll drag his sorry butt down there to sit in that seat for the last time, perhaps.
Simon Gault, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for supporting Save the Plane, and let's see what happens, huh?